Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Elizabeth De Sevo. And I'm so happy that she said yes to our interview. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we had such a lovely conversation pre-recording, so to say, and I would like to introduce you to the audience, of course. So you are an author, speaker, and creator of the Moment Method, a powerful framework that helps people turn everyday moments into intentional, life-shaping experiences. Drawing from your own story of loss and transformation, you inspire audiences worldwide, from Google to the World Economic Forum, to live with greater presence, purpose, and emotional depth. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast. Wow, Elizabeth De Sevo.
Thank
Such a
you. Thank you. Say
beautiful
my name
name.
so well. Thank you very much.
I train now, and I'm so inspired already to hear more about you and your work. My first question is: you've turned personal grief into a guiding philosophy for living. What shifted in you the moment you realized that life is truly made of moments?
Well, that's an incredible question because that happened, that moment that I learned that was when I was at my mom's funeral. It was the evening before her funeral. So when I was back home in New Jersey, she had died suddenly. And in my book, Choose Your Moments, I take the reader through that journey of being home in the U.S. and then up until the moment when I'm alone with my mom. And really, when I was just looking at her, I over and over in my head, I just kept hearing the same thing. Nothing matters, nothing matters, nothing matters. Only the moments matter. Only the moments matter. Life is a series of moments, and we get to choose how to live them. And I was so moved by that experience that I wanted to find a way to spread the message to people that we really do. We are empowered to live our best lives, and that our lives is just one moment after the next, and we can choose how to live them. Thus, I wrote the book.
Wow, thank you so much. It's a very empowering message. We live moment after moment. And yeah, I say sorry for your loss, of course, of your moms. And
Thank
yeah, and
you.
now I understand the spelling because you spell moments, you emphasize the M-O-M, right? In the
Exactly. Yes. Well, I
yeah.
still
Wow.
pronounce it. Some people pronounce it moments, which I think is adorable. But I still pronounce it moments, just capital MOM in honor of my mom.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing and being my guest today. How can people begin to move from living on autopilot to consciously creating their experiences even during pain or uncertainty?
Well, of course, my joke always is read the book, right? That will
Yeah.
that will help them. But I would say to ask themselves throughout the day, do I want to spend my moments doing whatever you're doing? Do I want to spend my moments thinking about this problem, having this conversation, in this job, in this relationship? And if the answer is no, make another choice. We do have that power to make the choice. And I think sometimes we might forget that in the everyday demands of life. We sometimes can forget that we actually have a choice on how we can handle any situation. Now, of course, grief is very difficult, and making your choice to live in the moment and pay attention to your moment will not take the pain of grief away. So I want people to understand that yes, grief is a very tough journey. It's going to happen to all of us. There's many forms of loss that we carry into our lives, whether it's a loss of a person, a job, a relationship, identity, whatever it may be. So there is, of course, you can't avoid that. And I wish I had the cure for it. But what I do have is a framework and a guide on how you can consciously live your life so you feel that you're getting the maximum out of it.
Wow. Thank you so much. Of course, I put the link in the show notes for the book. And I also love how you talked about choices because this is the Inspired Choice podcast, of course. And we get to choose how to invest our moments. You said it so beautifully. And then we make another choice if it doesn't fit.
Exactly. And I love the name of the podcast, Inspired Choice, because right, becoming an author was an inspired choice for me. There's a quote in the book that says, when you're moved by your message, you create movement. And I was so moved by the message that I felt my mom left me that I wanted to find a way to create a movement so people would pay attention to the moments of their lives and choose how to live them. And so it was an inspired choice to become an author and do just that.
Oh, I love that because it only takes one idea, one thought, and then you create the movement, how you said. But I never heard it before. So thank you for inspiring us. When it moves you, it creates a
When you're
movement.
moved by your message, you create movement.
One sentence. Yes. Wow.
The book has 80 quotes, so there's a short story in the beginning, but then as you flip through the book, each page has a quote and each quote has an explanation using the word moment. So the idea there is to make it easy for people. They can read it all the way through or they pick it up and that's their quote for the day.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Thank you so much. Okay, my next question is when you speak to global organizations, how do you translate something as intimate as presence and loss into the language of leadership and performance?
That's a great question. So, well, leadership and performance also begins with choice. How am I going to lead today? How am I going to act and perform and do my job today? How am I going to relate with my coworkers? Am I on purpose in what I'm doing in my career, in my work, in my everyday life? I do say that we have the choice to make impact on other people's moments as well as our own. And that can be as easy as a kind greeting when you walk into the office or in a meeting, or the bigger purpose of whatever the company may be doing. But there's many ways, and leaders, especially, and anybody managing teams, they need to be able to manage themselves as well. As good as you are, you will be. So hopefully it will help those leaders to be able to continue to grow themselves personally and professionally and be able to create an environment like that for their teams.
I love that. Lead yourself first, of course, and then inspire
Yeah, it reminds
others.
me of the airplane, right? When they say, put your oxygen mask on first before anybody else. And it's somewhat the same in the sense that we need leaders and colleagues also to be mentally and emotionally healthy and have a great environment and energy around us, but people to support us. There was a study that was done at the Kellogg School of Management that said if you sit 25 feet from a high performer, your own performance can go up by 30%, which is fantastic. But if you sit 25 feet from a low performer, your own performance can go down by 30%. So, sorry, I mix those. It's your own performance can go up by 15%. And if you're with a low performer, it can go down as much as 30%, which is suggesting that negative energy is more contagious. So not only do you want to choose your moments, but you want your colleagues to do the same. So we're in an environment where we can, thrive and flourish at work. And then
Yes.
there's also the situation of people bringing loss into the workplace. Like I said before, yeah, my losses were my parents, which are, let's say, natural death. We're all going to be losing our parents. But there are people who are bringing other forms of loss into the workplace: a miscarriage, a divorce, a separation, a child leaving home, a pet dying. I mean, there's endless different things. Even if it's a change in management or change of the company, there's a form of loss there. So I think it's something important for us to understand how to empower ourselves in the heavy grief of somebody dying and all the other types of loss that we carry every day.
Yes. And what do you say would help? Empathy?
For someone who has lost somebody,
Yes. Mhm.
yeah, I would say empathy and support and energy around them, to try not to talk them out of their grief, just let them feel it and allowing that space for them to act and react however they may, and you can be perfectly fine and then start crying out of the blue, or something can remind you, and just allow that person that grace. There's another quote in the book that says vulnerability is an act of courage. So those who are going through the grief and loss, again, whatever type of loss that may be courageous enough to be vulnerable and let your colleagues or friends or family know, I'm not going through a great time right now. I need some space. I may cry, ignore me, or whatever it may be.
Yes. So that means it's not about suppressing feelings or emotions.
No, I would encourage people definitely to feel their feelings. They will come out in other ways if we try to suppress them. So, and there's no shame in feeling your feelings.
Wow, that sounds good. Okay. My next question is, looking back, what's one moment, big or small, that continues to shape the way you help others choose their own moments?
Well, I would say that moment with my mom after she had passed, that was a big moment. It was a shock for me at first, obviously, and you're never prepared for loss, even when you know that it's going to happen. In this case, I didn't know, but and the idea of life is a series of moments, and we get to choose how to live them, really changed not only how I look at life, but how I live my life now, and I realized what a gift each moment is. And a few years after my mom died, my dad went into the hospital again at Christmas. Everything happens at my house in Christmas time. And when they told us that he wasn't going to make it, I panicked, of course, and went hysterical. And then I remembered that there's a quote in the book that says the difference between reacting and responding is just a few seconds. So I stopped myself and thought, okay, I just wrote a book that said life is a series of moments and we get to choose how to live them. So I'm going to choose how we do this. And he had to go on hospice. So we put him in his own room, and I decorated the room with photos of family that, his parents and grandparents and our family that was still here, teddy bears, flowers. We had family coming in and out. And a friend of mine was there, and I walked her out to her car in the parking lot. And I looked up at the hospital, and I knew which room was my dad's because of all the decorations that were inside. People would think it was the maternity ward, not the hospice ward. And I noticed that the American flag was blowing outside his window like that. And I thought, wow, how incredible. Because my great grandfather, who my dad is named for, Ralph De Sevo, traveled from Italy to the US back in the 1800s. So the future De Sevos could have a better life. And there his grandson was dying in a hospital bed over 100 years later with the American flag blowing outside his window. And I thought, oh, how beautiful. And I walked back into the hospital, and my dad was gone.
Oh, he was
And
gone.
because I decided to choose my moments, I have that beautiful memory of the American flag blowing outside the window. So I really encourage people to choose their moments in all circumstance. Moments is a chance to pivot and to make those choices that will help you in all circumstances, challenging and everyday.
Yes, what a great gift. Thank you so much for sharing. And this beautiful picture you talked about, I had the feeling it is like a mission accomplished or so when you
Yes,
talked about the flag.
yeah, especially
Yeah.
for my grandfather, it sure is. That it's a beautiful um history of our family, let's say, and of those stories that we heard when people, what came from Europe into the US, and America just starting. So yeah, it's a nice frame for that, because I grew up hearing that story, learning about it in history, and as a in history class as a young kid. So it was a nice, beautiful, profound moment that I'm going to say I gifted myself because I chose my moments.
I'm impressed and
Oh,
inspired
thank you.
already, as I told you. No, really, because so many ideas come to my mind now about how to create or choose my moments in the future. I mean, after the
There's a quote in
recording.
the book that says, "Time is for investing, not just spending." So another question to ask yourself throughout the day is, am I investing in this moment or am I spending it? And even in those unavoidable spending moments of our daily demands and work, there's always ways to add a little bit of value. I mean, a silly thing is when I'm cleaning or making my bed, I usually put earbuds in and I start singing. I'm sure my neighbors are not happy about that, but or listening to music, listening to a podcast. So I'm enjoying while I'm doing a task that nobody really enjoys. Even when I'm doing errands, outside, I try to walk or take the stairs so I feel like I'm investing in my physical health. So there are ways to add value to our everyday moments.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. There was another word coming to my mind. It's waste, like not wasting our moments, right?
Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
yes.
Well, and I say in the book also, it's not to emphasize the scarcity of time, but actually the immensity of time and resources that we have to live well.
I love that. And please tell us, where can we find you when people want to reach out to you after listening to this episode?
I have a website which is chooseyourmoments.net. The book is available on Amazon in 15 countries, including Germany, where you're from. And they can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Elizabeth De Sevo, and Instagram and Facebook under Choose Your Moments Book.
I absolutely love this. I love every moment of this episode already. Thank you for being my guest
Thank
today.
you.
And I have one last question for you. It is, do you set goals for yourself or intentions? And what is one of your next projects?
So intentions, yes, I try to have an intention for whatever it is I'm doing. I'm not always on point with that. Sometimes you get into your day and you're like, wait, what was my intention again? What am I doing here? So I do try to make sure that I have as much intentional living as possible. I try to do that in the morning, set the intention for the day. If I have specific goals or work goals, I write them down on little sticky papers and put them around so I will see them. And my project is spreading the moments message, and I will translate the book into Spanish at some point. I live in Spain, and so I thought that might be a good idea. Don't know about German. You can help me with that. We'll see. We'll see. So my project is to get the book in as many hands as possible and be able to spread the message.
Oh, I would love to help you with German, of course, my mother language. And I love every moment. Thank you for our interview today. And now it's time for your final thoughts to the audience, please.
Life is a series of moments, and we get to choose how to live them. So please remember that and give that gift of empowerment to yourself and choose your moments.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth De Sevo. And I see you in the next episode.